This is the story of Manohar, an earnest laborer looking for a steady paycheck, and the Sauhukar, an employer who builds his wealth by exploiting that exact need. The Sauhukar uses a contractual trap, a 3-month trial period. If a worker fails any assigned task, the contract is void, sending them home with $0. This creates the illusion of fairness, but the employer chooses the tasks, maintaining absolute veto power over wages. It is a mathematically rigged system. It allows an employer to extract 90 days of free labor under the guise of an audition, only to pull the lever at the very last second. Just days before Manohar's 3-month payout is due, the Sauhukar triggers the failure condition. He orders Manohar to inspect 50 heavy sacks of potatoes, searching for microscopic bugs on every individual vegetable. When Manohar struggles, the boss issues a second, physically impossible task: take a large, pitcher-sized glass jug and fit it entirely inside a small drinking glass. Because Manohar is working in good faith, he attempts these tasks with total sincerity. He strains his eyes on the potatoes and fumbles with the glass, eventually becoming overwhelmed by the impossibility of the demands. Manohar predictably fails. The Sauhukar fires him on the spot without a cent of pay, having legally fulfilled the letter of his contract while committing moral theft. This creates a specific dilemma. How can a victim defeat an oppressor who is perfectly protected by their own rigged rules? Manohar's wife Mala decides to enter the game. She disguises herself as a male laborer named Ratan and applies for the same position with the Sauhukar. Her strategy begins with total acceptance. She doesn't argue for fairness or better treatment. She agrees to every one of the boss's exploitative terms. However, she introduces a lethal addendum, a penalty clause. If fired before 3 months, the boss must pay her 6 months of wages immediately. Blinded by his history of tricking workers, the Sauhukar agrees, believing his control over tasks makes victory a statistical certainty. He fails to realize he has just authorized a campaign of malicious compliance, the act of inflicting harm by strictly following a flawed order. By mirroring his own contractual trap, Mala has shifted all the financial risk of his bad faith orders directly back onto him. The Sauhukar eventually tries his old trick. He hands Mala the large glass jug and orders her to put it inside the small drinking glass. Instead of explaining why it's impossible, Mala follows the order literally. She violently smashes the large pitcher to pieces, dropping shards into the small glass. Stunned by the loss of his property, the boss tries to force a failure by sending her to inspect potatoes in a pitch-dark warehouse. Mala maintains her literal obedience. Because she was told to work in the dark, she brings a candle. When a rat knocks the candle over, she allows the warehouse to catch fire while she continues her inspection. She has forced the Sauhukar to absorb the catastrophic physical costs of his own absurd demands, all without violating a single rule. The Sauhukar watches in horror as his property is destroyed and his warehouse burns. Overcome by panic, he does the one thing his own contract forbids. He fires Mala on the spot to stop the damage. That outburst triggers the penalty clause. By speaking the words to fire her, he has legally signed away 6 months of pay. The Sauhukar was manipulated into pressing the exact button that destroyed his own scam. Mala drops her disguise, revealing to the Sauhukar that his new employee is actually Manohar's wife. She demands 9 months of pay, her 6-month penalty, plus the 3 months stolen from her husband, and threatens to expose his fraudulent contracts to the entire village if he refuses. The Sauhukar, realizing he is legally and socially cornered, pays the full amount and begs for her silence. Exploiters rely on their victims honoring the spirit of the rules while they abuse the letter. Malicious compliance proves that the only way to defeat a bad faith system is to hold it strictly to its own literal terms.